Well, is it too early to think about Christmas? I don't think it is. I absolutely love the whole of the Christmas season. And this is a magazine I've been looking out for the last couple of weeks. The Country Living Christmas magazine, not to be confused with the December issue of Country Living. So it's the 2025 edition, and the cover price says there £7.50. I bought this with a bundle deal with Country Living. So I think the two magazines, Country Living, Good Housekeeping, So I got this magazine and the Christmas Good Housekeeping magazine for £9.99. So here we go. And I must say, I absolutely adore Christmas magazines. And if you adore them too, let me know in the comments. What are the magazines is it worth me paying an absolute fortune for, just to immerse myself in those lovely, hoogary, Christmassy, autumny moments? So let's get started. So as you can see, I've already flicked through the magazine, and what I like to do is to put myself post-it notes. So I've just ripped up some paper here, and quite often I also write on the piece of paper what it was I was interested in and what page number it was, so that if the sticker falls out, I know what it was I was after. But also, because I keep my magazines for years and years and years, when I start looking back at my old magazines, I can never quite remember, because tastes and fashions change, what it was I was interested in on that particular page. So I might, for instance, have tagged this page here, and then I can't remember why I tagged it. Oh, actually, it's quite a nice page. I have tagged that one this time around. But I just find it quite interesting that your tastes and fashions and trends change over time. So nothing has to be fixed. Can you see anything you like? So first of all, I have got, the note says pinwheel and swan. First of all, the swan's there because my two thrifting pals, Jan and Lisa, who you know I go out with quite a lot, they are always pulling my legs about swans. I am drawn to a swan in a semi-ironic way, and I just live in fear that for a birthday or Christmas gift, they're actually going to buy me a swan, and I don't really like them. I admire them, but I don't want one. Although, having said that, I did buy a huge swan planter this big, and it was from Dartmouth Pottery, and it was when I was on holiday in Brixton a couple of years ago. So if you love all things, thrifting, normally with a flower arranging twist to things, I do have a playlist for my thrift hauls. So that's why I've marked that. It's because when I see Lisa and Jan next, I shall be drawing their attention with my tongue firmly in my cheek. The next thing was pinwheels. These pinwheels are just so easy to make. And in fact, I've just pulled this one, well, not so much pulled it, as delicately took it off the peg rail in my kitchen to show you what my version looks like. Now, I'm thinking, did I just make this because I fancied making it, because it's quite new? Or did I make it because I was showing you how to make it? I can't remember whether I filmed a video on this, but it was really easy to do. What you need to just look out for there, can you see I've got some string wrapped around? So what I did, the question is this 2 pieces of paper or one? Let's assume you've got one long piece of paper. You just fold, accordion folds, and then you fold everything in half to get the midpoint. And that is where you tie your piece of string, piece of floristry wire. If you had a long armed stapler, that would be the absolute best thing. So you end up with this folded plinth of paper fixed in the middle. And then what I did here was I notched out the edges. So I've done a little triangle cut with my scissors. If you are doing this, I would say you need to be cutting with the paper right in the inside edge of your scissors, because otherwise they're not going to be sharp enough. Or do as I do, and I clipped through probably a few of the folds at a time, because it's just too many folds to cope with. And then here I rounded off the edges, and then you put glue. Where did I glue it? Here. You'll need 2 bits of glue, and then you open it out and glue them together. Did you follow that? I don't know, but let me know in the comments. And if I haven't already got a video of this, I will film a video showing you how easy it is to do. So I have got music paper here. So the holy grail of Christmas decorations, I think, is using old sheet music. And it can be really, really hard to get hold of. But I've been lucky enough with my car boot finds, I would say, on the main, that I have managed to pick up some music books, and because I'm never going to be able to play the piano, I am quite prepared just to rip it up and start again and make something decorative. So these look lovely, summer parties. I think probably that is left over from the summertime. I have also made them, I've got to box them in the loft upstairs with wrapping paper. So I do like to save the good quality wrapping paper. And there are a number of people in my family who always wrap their presents up with high quality paper. So I'm the one going around when everyone else is stuffing the wrapping paper into a black sack to recycle it. I'm there smoothing it all out so I can make more pinwheels for next year. And I have also been known just to iron the paper flat. So there is a little bit of a tip for you. So gorgeous, gorgeous red stripes. Now, if you've been following me along with me for a while, you may remember that I bought some placemats from Fabric Placemats that had this stripe in it and a plain red on the background. I think I bought that from Eastbourne some years ago. Again, check out the Eastbourne video in my thrift haul playlist. Because I had two sets of placemats, those and more of a pinky red check, I've been decluttering and thinking, a family of 3 doesn't need 8 placemats. So I've actually given these ones away some time ago. But I quite like here, the season of pomegranates, the amaryllis will soon be, we'll have to wait a little bit longer. November time, do you think they come into the florist shops? And also some of the hellebores there. But I'm loving all these red, earthy, understated, sort of almost medieval colours, which I really like. And how do you wrap your presents? Are you going just all out sparkly Father Christmassy, or do you go understated with your brown paper? The fashion at the moment is very much for Indian block print themed things. You'll have Indian block print dresses, napkins, tablecloths, and here it's got that look on a highly decorated paper here. Now, if you've been a member of my Facebook group, Flower Start World, for a while, and you'll find the link to that in the description underneath the video, you'll know that I'm struggling for her name now, Louise Lewis, I believe it is. She runs her own gift wrapping company and teaches classes. But she came into my group during lockdown, I think it was, and did a video of how to absolutely perfectly wrap a present with crisp edges, with no wastage, only 3 pieces of tape. And she has videos as well on her YouTube channel for how to tie the most perfect bow. Now, as I'm inviting you to have a look at that video, I'm just crossing my mind that I think Facebook might have done something with videos just recently and they may not actually exist anymore. So I'll have a check in my group, or you could do that too, search for videos and see whether anything comes up. And in the meantime, I will check as well, because I'm pretty certain that Louise has got her own YouTube channel as well. So if you do go and check her out, tell her I sent you. Now, I've flagged this because I'm quite interested in the log basket. We don't have an open fire, but we do have one working fireplace and a fake fireplace. And I do have some baskets, not dissimilar to this, and I'm thinking, well, that's an idea. I could take all the magazines out of the basket and put logs in instead, and that would sort of add to the Christmassy vibe. But while I'm looking, I spotted this chair here, and it's an Urkel chair. Now, when I first got married, when my husband and I got married, he had a kitchen table with 2 chairs, and they were these chairs in the plain wood. And we gave them away to a friend. There must have been 4 chairs, because he took the chairs, but we kept the little kitchen table. And I'm just thinking, the benefit of hindsight, I bet those chairs are worth a little bit of money, being mid-century and Urkel. So again, you can see these wintry tones. Have you noticed in the shops at the moment, brown seems to be the colour of the season? Are you a brown person? Or are you more towards the jewel-like colours? I would love to know. Really bright here. So this is another thing you can do with the Christmas magazines. Are your Christmas decorations on trend? Who cares about trends? But it may well be that if you're like me and you like to add another Christmas decoration every Christmas that comes around, that perhaps you may be tempted by something bright pink or sage green or a turquoise and add a little bit of colour. So I tend to go quite traditional, reds and whites, sometimes a bit of gold, and think I might have another declutter of my decorations. I declutter my Christmas decorations when I bring them down from the loft, and then I declutter them again when I put them back in the loft. And I've got absolutely beautiful collection of decorations I've built up over the year, but I've got some that are fabric ones where I've picked up at bazaars and Christmas fairs. Father Christmases that have been hand stitched, little knitted things, and my daughter absolutely hates them. And I'm thinking now that she's a grown up that I may well take that difficult step of thinking, well, if she prefers traditional baubles and I'm the only one that likes all these soft toys that get hung from the tree branches, that it may well be the time to pass them on. I could perhaps use them as present toppers, put a gift tag on a bit of ribbon, and then perhaps I could pass them on to friends and family, and it would be a nice way of me getting rid of them. So why have I flagged this page? Well, it's the greens and blues, which you might like, but I particularly flagged this page because this absolutely amused me. You mustn't forget that when you're wondering, why doesn't my home look like the pages of my favourite magazine? It's because a stylist has been there and has styled everything up perfectly. This isn't real life. And just to prove it, have you ever on your kitchen chair had a cushion? You might have had a cushion pad like that that's flat, but that looks like a cushion that's come off their settee. And then you stacked a serving plate and 4 side plates and a mug on said cushion, on said chair. But you can see that if that wasn't there, the picture would look quite dull. And if that chair was rotated in and pushed in, because it's so annoying when people get up from the kitchen table and leave their chair dragged out, the picture wouldn't be very inviting, it would be very static. And this way you can imagine the chair's been drawn out and it's just inviting you to pick up those plates and that mug and to sit down and enjoy a nice cup of tea and a natter with friends. More and more pictures. If only. So what's drawn me to this is the ivy. So if you've got quite a mature garden, it may well be you've got ivy growing up the trees, going up your hedge, going up the fence, and it's a really inexpensive way of decorating. But I would say, of course, you shouldn't be picking from the wild. If you've got lots of ivy or friends with ivy in their garden, they may well be happy for you to go round and tidy up their garden for them, and then you could bring home lots of trails of ivy. But hilarious. Ivy on the shelf over the bath. Are you really going to have a bath with ivy? And then all those bits that fall into the bath. And here it's all been woven through the banisters, which looks lovely. And then the bit that doesn't have any banisters, because here it would have been tied on with string or something like that. It's just been placed on the edge of the staircase. And can you imagine someone coming downstairs? And then the candlelight looks gorgeous. They've offset each step with a different candlelight. Of course, probably for the photograph, it may well have been natural, a lit flame. But if you're going to do home, I would highly recommend you use battery-operated night lights. But that's just not going to happen in my house. There'll be too much fuss, and then somebody will rush downstairs, catch the ivy in the foot, and they'll have taken a tumble. But we can just dream, can't we? Look. That's a good idea, isn't it? I've put colander and board. Why don't I mock this up with a colander and a board? Well, I have here just washed up a colander. I've been making quince jam and quince cheese, which is called membrillo, over the weekend, because I was lucky enough to go and pick some quinces from a local garden, and that's a nice idea. But obviously, if you're going to do this, use this as your inspiration. I quite like the way that it's put on a chopping board, and I do actually have a chopping board that I use for this kind of thing, not that I use in the kitchen though, and I bought that from the charity shop. I think they look absolutely beautiful when you buy them, because by the time they get to the charity shop they have been well used. They've got lots of nicks and dings in them, but it just makes a nice it just sort of roots or lets the colander sit there more purposefully when you've got something underneath it. But of course you couldn't use the colander for doing a live flower arrangement because the water's going to fall through the holes. So I suspect that what this is number one, an absolutely massive pillar candle, which I don't have to hand. And then it's just a matter of picking greenery. So these beautiful frosted, are they cranberries? They're not real. They'll be on wires, and some of them have either the little coating is blown there, that's giving you that snowy look, or it has been coated with a little bit of snow, and it's got pine cones, and can you see the beech nut husk there, the walnut? So it's just like a little treasure trove. Get your candle in first of all, put your greenery in, bit of Christmas trees, bit of holly, there's a little bit of moss. Only pick it from your garden and not from the wild. And then, this has amused me as well, if you have ever tried tying a ribbon around the outside of the container, particularly when it's shaped with its tapering edge in, it is near impossible to do. So I suspect that's been hooked around the handles of the colander, or around the back there's a massive bit of sticky tape holding it in place. And then you've got a little bit of a star here that has been bought. It's made out of silver birch bark, but you may well be able to find those in a craft fair near you. Decorations here, they are soup ladles. But does a soup ladle actually sit like that? Because wouldn't the ladle be the spoon and then the ladle would sit flat 90 degrees, whereas that looks as if it's been bent round. So again, it's trickery going on. So no wonder some things that we try and copy from magazines don't work. It's because it's all been faked up. Now, gift tags. I don't know whether you can hear that. There's an ice cream van going down the road. I've bookmarked this place. My friends and I are going on a caravan trip. And again, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll know that we've been doing this for a few years now. I think this is our 4th trip, and we head off and we have a weekend of charity shopping, and in the evenings we craft. So this is one of the suggested crafts that we do, is to make our own gift tags. So Jan has a gift tag cutter. So it has this scallop shape, but it's you can put in a piece of card or whatever as long as you want. The punch hole I've got, you can only make the cards and they always come out this side. But with Jan's, the cutter is just that top edge, and you can decide how wide to make the gift tag, and also how long. I must ask her where she got it from, and try and put a link to that in the description under the video. But this is bringing back memories of when I used to teach my live flower arranging classes and create an Advent crown. And it's sort of taken the idea of the 4 candles, the countdown to Christmas, normally arranged in a circle. And just like this, for a few years, I was teaching this using mugs, so whether they were a set of 4 mugs that are identical or mismatched, like these are mismatched here, the red and white crockery, and then the candles being put down inside. In those days, I would have been showing you how to attach the prongs to the candle before you put it into your flower foam. These days, I'm trying to avoid flower foam, so what I would do here is I have got that museum wax. You've probably heard me mention it before. It's like a putty. So I would scoop it out of the bowl, and there is a link to the museum wax in the description underneath the video, and then roll it into a ball, put it onto the bottom of the candle, and then with a firm push down and twist a little bit, get it to stand solid. And then you can put in all your little bits of decoration. And the great thing about not using flower foam is you don't have to cover the foam up, because there's quite often when you arrange flower foam, you're adding more and more greenery and foliage in, because you can't let this unattractive block of single-use plastic show. But of course, if you haven't got any flower foam, you don't really need a water retaining medium for your greenery because it's evergreen. And so if you were making this in time for Christmas, it would probably see you through the Christmas season. But equally, if by Christmas Eve it's all looking a bit dried and tatty, you just go out to the garden again and refresh it. So watch this space and see whether we do actually make that at the caravan this time round. Door wreaths, have you decided on your theme of your door wreath yet? Again, I keep mentioning these playlists, but do watch all the free videos that I've got. There's loads of them, different ways to make Christmas door wreaths, seasonal door wreaths. But what drew me to this was the way that they had created a twiggy base and just given this accent area that's got the greenery in it. So probably, if we're going to talk floristry principles, if you've got the whole circle, this is probably occupying a third of the circle. And you can decide whereabouts on the wreath that you want to have this accent area. But what drew me to this was the vintage cutlery. And lo and behold, I've just dug out some vintage cutlery of mine, which is really dirty because I've been using this. It was in my gardening tool basket near the back door. I've got my gardening gloves and seeds and trowels and things. But sometimes I go out in the garden and I just want to have something little. And I have been using this spoon and fork as my little gardening paraphernalia. But I could clean those up. You know, they've tarnished a little bit. Perhaps they look attractive. I'm just wondering whether they are anything special. Is that silver plated? You know, how posh am I that I use silver plated cutlery to go out and do the gardening? But these will have belonged to one of my grandmothers, and I've had them in my kitchen drawer for so long. I use the serving spoons, but I don't like, it's quite a deep spoon here, and I don't like the feel of the deep spoon in my mouth. So it just seemed pointless having them in the drawer when I could actually put them to good use. And perhaps if you call round to my house at Christmas, I may well have incorporated those into my own Christmas door wreath. The Christmas rose. So the Christmas rose is the hellebore. Let me know if you have any success for that. And then there's an article on marbling. I've been toying with the idea of marbling for a while. My daughter 10 years ago was really into making slime. And one of the methods she uses was to use shaving foam. And then I saw a video about how you can use shaving foam to marble things. So I blew an egg, a duck's egg for Easter, and then I squirted the shaving foam onto a baking tray. And then I dribbled, I think it was food colouring on it. And then you sort of I would have dragged a spoon up and down to sort of create that feathered look, a bit like the top of a bakewell tart you get from Mr. Kipling. And then I rolled my egg in it. And to begin with, I was a bit disappointed about the colouring, but 10 years later, in fact, I have touched this egg today because I've been moving some things around, and it just looks like a proper marble egg. And in fact, I've got it in a bowl with some actual marble eggs. They're heavy eggs that I picked up from the charity shop, and I think a summer one of them, and it's quite hard until you pick them up to distinguish which one is the natural marble and which one I marbled myself. So I flagged this up because the girls and I have been toying with the idea of doing some marbling, but it's very messy, and I knew that I was looking for some white Christmas baubles. And last time I went out to the charity shop with my pals, I knew I wanted them, but I couldn't remember the reason why, so I didn't buy them when I saw them. But I think this was the reason why, that I was thinking we could marble Christmas decorations. And I think it's more complicated than it looks. Let's turn the page. The water is thickened by a substance that comes from seaweed. Could you do it without? Could you add glue in? I don't quite know. But if you're into marbling, this is the tray here that he's using. And then his brush there, that's where he's flicking the paint onto the surface of the water. But there is actually, I've written here on that little note, the method is down here about how he does it. For Alex, mornings start with preparation of his materials. First, he mixes his paints using water-soluble gouache, which is a type of artist paint. Then he makes the size, the liquid in the marbling tank, by combining water with Caragian. Is that how I say it? Caragian, a seaweed, and the size has the consistency of double cream and is thicker than the paint. I guess so that when you put the thing you're going to marble, they're marbling paper, onto the surface, you don't want it to fall, you want it to be supported. Ah, that's an idea. Have I answered my own question? If you're marbling paper, you wouldn't want it to sink down into the tray. But if you were marbling my Christmas baubles, you'd have to actually physically push them into the water. So does it matter that you haven't got that special thickening material? Ooh, watch your space. And again, if you know what to do, let me know in the comments. I don't really look at the food because I don't eat meat, and I just like a traditional Christmas dinner with a meat, something else instead of the chicken. So I normally skip over these bits, but one thing I didn't skip over is this, which is called a festive fumble, which is a cross between, oh gosh, what is it? A cross between a crumble and something else. I don't quite remember. But what drew me to this is just the picture, because, as I said, I've been making quince jelly. Now's the time of the year where you've got friends who have got apples that they can't get rid of, their apple trees. I went to a flower festival yesterday, and I went into the church and I could smell the scent of apples. And Kent, where I live, is the Garden of England, so it's got loads and loads of orchards. I was following my nose round, and then I discovered that on one of the side tables, along with craft materials, they were selling teas and coffees and craftwares and things, that there were some cooking apples, and it was by donation. So I have donated and got myself even more apples. But I thought this looked quite good. It's it's a posh stewed apple with a layer of yogurt, I think that is, or whipped cream. Plain yogurt or lightly whipped cream, or a mixture of both, it says, and then with this sort of granola topping. But what really drew my eye was this little red box here, because the recipe has come from this book. And I was given this book for Christmas last year. It is absolutely gorgeous, written by Lucy Brazier, who works for, well, I should read the book again to find out what the relationship is. Hugh Whittingstall is the man that owns River Cottage, which is the cookery school down in Devon. And at one time, Hugh had loads and loads of cooking programmes on TV. And I think now he's quite an activist in terms of sourcing materials, encouraging us to eat fish that are varieties we're not familiar with. So is that, cod is scarce, encouraging us to eat pollock instead, I think. But this book is absolutely gorgeous. So I will definitely leave a link to this in the description underneath the video. And if I forget, don't forget to leave a comment and it'll prompt me to do it. But it's all food based, but it's got a little bit of traditions, a bit of things, and, just, getting you into the Christmas spirit. So I will definitely, I've had this on my bookshelf all year, and I'm going to move it now, and it's going to take pride of place in my living room, so that next time I'm sitting down having a cup of tea, I shall start flicking through and making post-it notes, memos to myself. So I will remember to do, or take the advice of Lucy and Hugh, what to do for Christmas time. So there we are, lots of other pictures. I'm particularly enjoying, as I said before, these very dark colours, the luxury, in the sort of that medieval look. I would just love it if someone came and bought me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, well, half a dozen amaryllis that I could then cut down, have in a vase. Wouldn't that be the absolute height of luxury? And check as well ribbon fastening. So whether that's for your presents or whether you like a bow on your Christmas wreath, do what you want to do. But if you want to be on trend, you might, have a look. One year it was for very fine velvet ribbons. Is there now a move? These are dyed silk ribbons. So it may be that perhaps you've got an old sheet and you might want to just rip it up and give yourself lengths of ribbon. That would be white, but there's nothing to stop you, buying some dye and colouring it, or perhaps even doing some home dyeing by boiling it up with some red cabbage. The world is your oyster. So again, there's sort of heavy prints everywhere. Again, the bow tied with the quite long trails. So a lovely little wreath there. So again, you know, are those amaryllis real? Because let's not fool ourselves. These aren't current photographs. What they were either taken in the middle of July, do you think, or perhaps last year. But with the amaryllis, it has a long stem, but it's hollow, and it's, you know, about that big. It's really tricky to use. I'm wondering whether these are artificial, because it would be virtually impossible to get them into a wreath without crunching them. So as I say, it's all trickery. Winter delights. Oh, looking forward to some lovely mornings. Sinuous ivy. We were talking about ivy before, and it's just, I'm quite interested in this. It just gives you a little bit of a background as to the meaning of ivy. Bridal bouquets may have included a spray of ivy to indicate fidelity. Being evergreen, it was regarded as a symbol of eternal life in past days. Apothecaries valued the plant, using the berries to soothe coughs and lung conditions. Leaves soothe inflamed skin, despite the fact it's toxic to humans. Have you ever used ivy as a substitute for washing powder when you do your washing? I've got Nancy, is her name Nancy Birtwistle? I've got her first book, the blue one, and I have been meaning to try her method of crushing ivy leaves. I think you steep them in water and you get this liquid that you can use to wash your clothes instead of using washing powder. So we're in someone else's home here. Interesting to see how things are put together. Even, you know, the Christmas stockings, what colour have you got? So there's a bit of article there on farming. Nice planted basket. There's cinnamon sticks in there and little, they're probably paper white narcissi there. Oh, and the page that I marked. Now, if you've subscribed to Country Living for a while, you may over time start to recognise pictures. And this with the, oh gosh, what's it called? The spice there. Anise, star anise, seed pods. And then I thought, I recognise that. I quite like this, another white candles making the Advent crown. A basket. I used to have one of these baskets, a huge one that one of the ladies from Flower Club gave me, or I paid for it for club funds. But just really simple, some oranges, bits of festive foliage, star anise balls and white candles. But I think this has come from this book here, Scandi Christmas by Christiane Belstead Myers. She regularly appears in the pages of Country Living, and this is a lovely book. Again, I'll leave a link to it in the description underneath the video. But there's lots of beautiful craft projects, whether you're into sewing. I've done this before. Gingerbread salt dough wreath. Now, one of the ladies in my Facebook group gave me the recipe that she used for gingerbread flavoured salt dough. You don't eat it, it's just for crafting with. And that's lasted me. She must have given me that recipe in lockdown. And, well, 4 years. For 4 years, it's been fine. I have to open the plastic box and see whether it's survived a 5th year. And it's really highly scented. It's lovely. And it does feel like you're making gingerbread, but because you can't eat it, you're not going to put on weight. So there's lovely, you know, crafting, little sewing projects. Oh, look. Is that the sister? Red ribbon there, blue ribbon there. That's the same door, isn't it? Is it even the same wreath? 1, 2, 3. I don't know whether it is. It looks very similar, doesn't it? So this is a lovely, lovely book. Even if you didn't make any crafts, it would just be nice to flick through and bring it out at Christmas time and think, if I had all the time in the world, this is what I would do. That's another project we're going to make when we go away in the caravan, using cotton reels to make Christmas decorations for the tree. So that is a beautiful book, highly recommended by me. And then we've got more food. I skipped out. No, I haven't. Oh, mysterious mistletoe. It says, how did the poisonous parasitic plant become connected with romance? Perhaps because in Norse mythology, is that in focus for you? It symbolised love. The Druids and Romans also thought hanging it in the home not only protected you from evil, but brought you peace and good luck. So there you have it. Good enough for the Romans, it's good enough for us. Being eco, how to be an eco elf. So I've already told you that I reuse wrapping paper. And I also, last year, and I'm not sure whether I ever did a video about this, but I made my own Christmas crackers. I got some napkins I got from the charity shop, some bright red ones. And I had the inside of a toilet roll, the tube, and I rolled them up, tied velvet ribbon on the edges so it didn't fall out. Well, tied one end, put gift inside, and then tied the other end. And then, where you normally have the sort of glitzy bit at the top, the decoration, I put one of my glitzy brooches. And I thought to myself when I saw this article, oh, I can do that again this year, but I can't. Well, I could, because I have used all my glitzy brooches on my brooch wreath. Do you remember I showed you how to do this? It was a couple of weeks ago. So I think I'd mocked it up, but it took a little bit of time to put my brooches on, and I'm rather pleased with this. The only thing I would change is that I put the blue one here in the middle of the ribbon that I'd made, the bow I'd made, but the navy blue, the dark blue ribbon sort of looks black here, but also sort of creates the visual whole. So I think I'm going to have to find some more brooches, and perhaps even I could put my earrings in here, my studs, perhaps some of the ones I'm not wearing anymore, just to accentuate the fact that that's not a big black hole at the end of my wreath. It is, there is actually a bow there, but isn't that absolutely gorgeous? So it's for any time of the year. I've have this hanging up on the peg rail that I see as I come into the kitchen. And it just, when you've made something, it's nice to have a little look and give yourself a pat on the back to say that was time well spent. I was a bit mean with the amount of hanging ribbon. I can remember when I made the video, I just sort of guessed how much I would need, not taking into account how much ribbon gets eaten up because you make the knot. So make it longer rather than shorter is my advice. So I'm just going to put that over there. And charity. Oh, it's about being green and eco, charity shop presents. So for years and years and years, my sisters and I, when we exchange gifts, we have a £5 limit, and so I get them from the charity shop. When I go out with Jan and Lisa, we have a £2 limit for Christmas and birthdays, and it really is good fun. And it gives you something, if you've got you're addicted to go out and buying things, and you like the thrill of the chase, it's quite nice because you do have to be looking all year round to get the right number of presents you want in accordance with the budget that you've got. So lots of lovely snow. Fingers crossed we'll get snow this year, but not while we're travelling. And I have bookmarked this page because I like the little clay house. So I have bought some air drying clay, and I'm going to attempt to do this when we go away in the caravan. Influenced a little bit by the little boxes we made at the caravan several years ago. I think this idea came from something we saw on Instagram. So we spent a happy 2 nights that weekend gluing and sticking. So we made the base, I think that's out of a cereal box, decoupaged on. I've got music paper here, and then did the drawing, little naive painting of doors and windows, and then did I top coat it with UPVA glue? I'm not quite sure, but fiddly getting that chimney on the top. So I have this, again, sitting on top of the peg rail I got in the kitchen with a couple of wooden houses my dad made my sisters and I when we were little. And I thought perhaps using this as inspiration with the air dry clay, I could then have a little clay house to join in the fun. So we'll have to see whether or not that works. Oh, gourmet gifts. I'm an okay cook. I particularly enjoy the craft of cooking, making jam, making jellies, that kind of thing. And for years, I used to enjoy making sloe gin, but I can't drink alcohol, so I've stopped making sloe gin. until again spotted something on Instagram. And who says social media is toxic? It may well be in certain parts, but it's also a place to get lots of ideas from. And the lady who posted the reel said that her parents were publicans and they never made their sloe gin by adding the gin to this mix with the whole of the sloes, because a certain amount of gin gets locked up in the sloe, and because you discard the sloes, you're wasting money and wasting gin. So what she said to do was to layer up your sloes and then a band of sugar, a band of sloes, a band of sugar, and you have to let it sort of macerate, and that is what you get your syrup from, which you can then add to your gin. And I thought that's a good idea, because although I can't drink the gin, I could, next time I use my soda stream to make fizzy water at Christmas time, I could add in some of my syrup from this to make myself a festive drink, all inspired by the item here. And it's a recipe for orange and cranberry syrup. And I think perhaps that is coming to the end of the magazine. Oh, a little box of, the sort of leftover things you get. These are candle holders for a Christmas tree. I've got some of those. You probably saw them actually when I did the brooch wreath, because they were in the same box. But there's little candles here, there's rolls of ribbon. So if you've got a nice little container you can put on your coffee table, all those odds and ends, and it just looks like you've styled it absolutely beautifully. Lovely old man's wreath here. I will say, if you want to do an old man's wreath, old man beard's wreath, I wish you all the best of luck. It looks beautiful at this time of the wreath. Old man's beard. It's the wild clematis, but as it dries, it gets fluffier and fluffier, and for me, it sort of loses something a little bit. Honesty here, quite like these. These are old decanters, and then this top bit is a tea-light shade, and I can't work out how it fixes, or do you think it's just balanced with a tea light in there? Quite like that idea. So you have to cobble something together. This reminds me of going to Sweden, see the Northern Lights one New Year. And then there's lots of other interesting articles too. So if you like the look at this, you can watch the video again, or perhaps pop down to your local newsagents. I would say it has to be a bigger newsagents. Some of the small ones don't carry this magazine. So it's a little article there on poinsettia, lovely greens and reds there, beautiful. That is kind of what my tree looks like when it's been decorated, but lots of lovely things to look at. So I hope you've enjoyed flicking through the magazine with me. Christmas Tree Festival. Oh, it's lots of things to do. They've sort of festivals and activities, and Christmas tide swims. We normally swim on New Year's Day in the sea. There's carols and things like this. And I thought, made a note to myself, they've not mentioned Christmas tree festivals. So if you haven't got a clue what I'm talking about, check out my playlist for flower festivals, because run up to Christmas, lots of churches have Christmas tree festivals, and it's a church full of 20 trees, and they've all been decorated by the local community. And I think probably that is that. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to catch up with you another time.